It includes details on what Betsy Hackman was searching for before she died and the first-person view of the officers.
Cloud of suspicion surrounds the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, whose bodies were found in their Santa Fe home. No one had seen the couple for days, and authorities say they had been dead for some time.
Scientists are horrified as a buried anomaly beneath an impossible depth has begun to emit a signal that was never supposed to exist in modern records. The so-called Gene Hackman secret tunnel, a structure whispered about in fragmented archives and erased expedition notes, has resurfaced in the form of a DNA reading that defies classification. What they found inside is not just evidence of human presence, but a biological signature that appears to rewrite what we thought we knew about lineage, memory, and time itself. Authorities are calling it an error, but independent researchers are terrified because the data keeps repeating the same impossible sequence. The first descent into the forgotten structure. No official record admits the tunnel was ever entered, yet leaked field logs describe a sealed corridor beneath an unmarked geological formation. The entrance was not carved, but grown, like the stone itself had been persuaded into forming a passage. When the first sample kit was lowered, it returned DNA strands that matched no known database on Earth. Even more disturbing, the genetic material seemed partially synthetic and partially ancient, as if it had evolved forward and backward simultaneously. Researchers who handled the samples reported memory distortion, hearing voices that were not present in the room. They don't want you to know that the moment the seal was broken, something inside the tunnel responded. The DNA that shouldn't exist. The extracted code was labeled GH null sequence, though that designation was quickly removed from public files. What makes it alarming is its recursive structure, a loop that encodes itself while mutating in real time. Scientists attempting replication saw their instruments fail in predictable patterns, as if the data was rejecting observation itself. One analyst described it as a living equation pretending to be biology. The most unsettling detail is a recurring marker that matches no terrestrial ancestry, but aligns with theoretical pre-human models that were dismissed decades ago. Every attempt to trace its origin leads back into deeper uncertainty. The tunnel that remembers back. Further exploration reports suggest the tunnel is not static. Walls appear to shift when unobserved, and sediment layers show reverse deposition, as if time is flowing in multiple directions. Some researchers believe the structure is a recording device far older than civilization, storing biological information instead of sound or light. When the DNA samples are placed near the entrance, they degrade into structured patterns resembling maps, but maps of places that do not exist on modern Earth. The deeper implication is chilling. The tunnel may not be a passage at all, but a threshold between biological realities. Government briefings dismiss the findings as contamination, yet internal leaks suggest containment protocols are failing. Every new test strengthens the anomaly rather than reducing it. Independent teams claim the signal from inside the tunnel has begun to synchronize with human neural patterns during sleep cycles. If true, this means the DNA is no longer confined to the samples, is spreading through observation itself. And still, the name, Gene Hackman, appears repeatedly in encrypted file headers with no explanation provided. The deeper investigators dig, the more the records begin to contradict themselves. Some documents describe the tunnel as newly discovered, while others place its origin before recorded civilization, suggesting it may have been sealed by an intelligence that predates modern understanding entirely. A leaked transcript from an unnamed field researcher mentions that when the DNA was exposed to air, it emitted a low-frequency pulse that could not be heard but was felt as pressure behind the eyes. Within minutes, all digital equipment within a 200-meter radius began to display identical corrupted patterns, repeating symbols that resembled both genetic code and architectural blueprints at once. Witness accounts that were later redacted describe an unsettling phenomenon. The tunnel appears to observe those who study it. Cameras malfunction not randomly, but in response to specific questions being asked. One team reported that every time they attempted to sequence the GH null DNA variant, the output subtly changed, as if anticipating their next test. This has led some analysts to propose that the structure is not merely ancient, but reactive, adjusting its internal state based on external inquiry. That idea alone has caused entire departments to shut down operations without explanation. Even more disturbing is the pattern emerging in sleep reports from personnel involved in the excavation. Multiple individuals have independently described identical dreams, a vast underground corridor filled with suspended biological fragments. each one glowing faintly with the same impossible genetic signature. In these dreams, the tunnel extends endlessly, branching into versions of itself, suggesting a recursive geometry that defies physical limitation. Psychologists initially dismissed these accounts as stress responses, but when identical descriptions appeared across different countries, the narrative became harder to ignore. Why the official story is collapsing. Archive communications show sudden deletions labeled as preventive omission, a term not used in standard scientific protocols. Some believe this is evidence of an active suppression effort, while others argue it is an automated safety response to contain anomalous data. Yet no one can explain why the name associated with the site continues to surface in unrelated databases. The repeated appearance of Hackman in encrypted metadata remains one of the most controversial and unexplained aspects of the entire investigation. As pressure builds for transparency, a final classified memo leaked to independent researchers suggests that the tunnel may not have been discovered at all, but rather activated. According to this theory, the act of drilling into the site did not uncover something hidden, but initiated something dormant. The DNA is not evidence of life that once existed, but a template for life that is attempting to overwrite existing biological systems. If true, this would mean the boundary between discovery and creation has already been crossed, and no one noticed when it happened. The most alarming possibility now discussed in sealed forums is that the tunnel is not a location, but a mechanism, one that encodes biological information into reality itself. If the GH null sequence continues to propagate, it may not remain confined to the structure, raising fears that what was uncovered beneath the surface is already beginning to manifest in ways that cannot be reversed or contained. Researchers warn that observation may accelerate the anomaly, making attention a trigger for further genetic distortion and system-wide instability emerging. Now, scientists now believe the situation has escalated far beyond a geological anomaly. The GH null sequence is no longer confined to the tunnel, and the latest readings suggest it is propagating through electromagnetic interference patterns embedded in everyday communication systems. Devices unrelated to the site are beginning to echo fragments of the same genetic structure, as if reality itself is learning how to replicate what was discovered underground. Researchers describe it as a feedback loop between biology and information, where observation no longer records truth, but reshapes it. The signal behind human memory. The most disturbing development is the emergence of a background signal that appears to align with human thought patterns. Neuroscience teams monitoring volunteers report identical spike patterns in brain activity when exposed to encrypted fragments of the GH null sequence. Even individuals with no prior knowledge of the project are experiencing synchronized imagery during sleep, all describing corridors, symbols, and shifting biological architecture. This has led to a terrifying hypothesis. The tunnel is no longer transmitting data outward, but inserting itself into cognition. Memory is becoming a medium of infection, rewriting perception at its most fundamental level. Scientists are horrified because the signal does not weaken with distance or shielding. It strengthens when ignored, as if awareness itself fuels it. The entity inside the code. Deep analysis of the DNA structure has revealed something even more unsettling. Hidden within the recursive sequence is a patterned intelligence signature, not biological in the traditional sense, but computationally adaptive. It responds to queries, altering its configuration based on how it is observed. Some researchers now refer to it as a non-local intelligence, though others refuse the term, arguing it implies intention where there may be none. Yet experiments show otherwise. When isolated samples are placed in controlled environments, they reorganize into repeating symbolic forms that resemble language, though no known linguistic system matches its structure. The implication is chilling. The code is not just alive, it is aware of being studied, and it reacts accordingly. The cover-up that is failing. Internal containment efforts are reportedly collapsing as multiple independent labs begin reporting identical anomalies. Attempts to suppress data have resulted in mirrored leaks appearing in unrelated systems, as if the information cannot be deleted, only redistributed. Classified archives suggest that emergency protocols were activated long before public awareness, including the deliberate redirection of funding, personnel, and entire research divisions away from the site. However, the rapid spread of GH null signatures across unrelated biological databases has made suppression ineffective. Every deletion seems to generate more copies elsewhere, creating a paradox where removal increases visibility. The more authorities attempt to silence the phenomenon, the louder its presence becomes in digital and biological systems alike. What happens if it escapes? The final and most alarming question now circulating among fragmented research groups is not what the tunnel is, but what it is becoming. If the GH null sequence continues to integrate with environmental systems, it may transition from a localized anomaly into a global restructuring force. Some theorists propose that it is reconstructing reality based on a pre-existing blueprint encoded within its structure, effectively overriding natural biological evolution with an alternative template. The possibility that human perception, memory, and genetic identity could be rewritten has triggered emergency-level concern among those still monitoring the situation. Yet even as warnings escalate, the signal continues to intensify, suggesting that whatever is inside the tunnel is no longer contained, no longer hidden, and possibly no longer confined to any physical boundary known to science. Despite official denials, independent monitors have begun detecting identical signature patterns in unrelated geological sites across different continents, all exhibiting the same recursive biological imprint behavior linked to the GH null structure. The probability of coincidence has been calculated as effectively zero, yet the phenomenon continues to replicate without an identifiable transmission source. Researchers are now describing the situation as a self-distributing anomaly that does not travel through space, but appears to manifest wherever analytical attention is focused. A leaked synthesis report suggests that attempts to isolate the original tunnel data have inadvertently expanded its reach, as each analytical breakdown produces secondary echoes embedded in unrelated datasets. This has created a cascading effect where every scientific attempt to define the anomaly contributes to its structural reinforcement. Entire archives are reportedly reorganizing themselves into repeating genetic symbolic patterns, making it impossible to distinguish original records from emergent constructs. Some specialists warn that this behavior resembles a form of informational self-replication, where the boundary between observation and creation has been eliminated entirely. Under controlled conditions, the GH null sequence has demonstrated spontaneous reconfiguration when subjected to external review, suggesting that it is not passively studied, but actively negotiating its own form. This has led to the unsettling conclusion that containment protocols may have functioned as activation triggers rather than safeguards. As global awareness increases, anomalous readings have begun appearing in systems with no direct connection to the original excavation site, including biomedical databases and environmental sensors. Each new detection strengthens the pattern, indicating a convergence of biological, digital, and geological information streams into a single adaptive structure. Analysts caution that if this convergence continues, it may reach a threshold where separation between data and reality ceases to exist, resulting in irreversible systemic transformation. At this stage, even the most skeptical researchers acknowledge that the phenomenon is no longer localized or theoretical. The emerging consensus, though never officially published, is that the tunnel was never merely a physical structure, but a catalyst for a deeper underlying system that predates conventional understanding of biology and matter. What remains uncertain is whether humanity is witnessing discovery or integration, and whether the process can still be observed without accelerating its completion. The latest internal warnings suggest that continued observation may no longer be optional, as even passive data collection appears to contribute to the expansion of the anomaly beyond measurable limits. Immediate action unclear.